Not long ago, I did my 1950s, well, 1950 to 1954 sci-fi retrospective, and I excluded a few titles that I claimed I wasn't as much of a fan of in there. I've decided maybe over the course of this week, I'll just mention a few of them which I do admire them to a point, and I felt as though they're important enough, and they're great entry points for discussions of large facets of popular culture as we know it today. And so naturally in this case we go to Jules Verne, 1954, the Richard Fleischer adaptation of his 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I found it fascinating that this film is considered an extraordinary precedent for the popularization of visual steampunk. Watching the film again, and I don't think I'd seen it in this high definition before, it was very, very clear to me how many people watching this in 1954 were enchanted by its it's not often, I don't know how often in cinema prior we had a popular visual depiction of a retro future. I was extraordinarily impressed with how I've actually seen this film as a child. I must have been maybe 10 or 11 when I saw this film, and I thought it was really, really entertaining at that age, actually. And then revisiting as a teenager, I was really put off by the Whale of a Tale musical number, and it really clouded the rest of the film experience for me. But truth be told, this is a fairly quality film. A lot of the set design is extraordinary. The visual effects, I had to check whether they added CGI for when the squid's underwater during the Blu-ray remaster, because I know sometimes they do that with newer remasters of older Star Trek and Doctor Who episodes have CGI added. I've been watching some of that recently, and I'm thinking, oh, did they add CGI to the squid for the underwater segments? I'm not sure if they did. Someone clarify if they did. But yeah, the squid sequence is phenomenal, especially in high definition. It looks better than ever before. I couldn't believe it. One of the strong facets of this film, and it's what actually really engaged me with the film when I saw it as a younger person, and that was there's four strong central characters which the narrative revolves around, and it's their chemistry and them attempting to weave relations with one another and get to know one another, which drives the plot. That was fascinating to me at that time, and they're four really engaging personalities. It was my first exposure to Peter Lorre. I remember I was watching the film in the TV in my room. I'd rented the DVD from a local video rental shop, and, well, DVD, whatever. And my dad came in and he was watching a bit of it, and he said, that Peter Lorre, he's a very, very famous actor. It seemed like he may have been, just based upon his presence, and I remember in the behind the scenes footage of the film on the DVD, they'd refer to, he's in it quite prominently presenting the film. Yeah, so there was an aura of, the characters are powerful, and they give a strong presence. There's lots of charisma between James Mason, obviously, is quite legendary as Captain Nemo. Peter Lorre, very memorable. I didn't enjoy Kirk Douglas's performance as much now, but I remember at the time thinking it was quite fun, and he's valiant and all that, kind of a cliche. And now it would have been like the first time I'd ever seen Kirk Douglas in anything. I wouldn't have recognized him as Kirk Douglas. Now I can't unsee him as Kirk Douglas, and it feels like a character in a costume, frankly. I'm not going to lie. And then, of course, Paul Lucas as Professor Pierre Aronnax. Very memorable and engaging performance as well. Kind of the most level-headed character in the screenplay. Welcome respite from some of the youthful exuberance of Kirk Douglas's Ned Land, the apparent cracked insanity of James Mason's Captain Nemo, and the more I guess you would say slightly less assertive presence of but phenomenally likable and more affable presence of Peter Lorre. Obviously, Jules Verne's influence on modern popular science fiction in general is insurmountable, and I think this film's popularization of his work, I can't think, this must be one of the most pivotal works to popularize the initial texts of Verne and his imagination. Someone please nominate if there is any other items which really put forth his vision to mass audiences. In the 21st century, I think his work is considered a bit naff, and adaptations of it have a difficult time reaching a wider appeal. I can't think of many that have. In any case, this 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, other than one fairly annoying musical number, I mean, from my perspective, others might think it's absolutely delightful. There's also a really tasteless, but particularly ugly scene of some native tribes people, which, yeah, that I don't think anyone's going to be a fan of that scene in today's day and age, and rightfully so, frankly. Other than that, for me, it's a relatively likable film, an impressive production. The VFX are extraordinarily ahead of its time. There's an uncited claim on Wikipedia that it was the most expensive Hollywood film ever made up to that point. I have to admit, I wouldn't be surprised if that were true.